Joining me now is Democratic Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, who sits on the Senate committee that's going to decide whether Puzder gets confirmed. Obviously, you're outvoted by Republicans, but what issues are most of concern to you, if any, about this nominee?
So this is an extraordinary nominee, and I'm not giving away the fact that there won't be Republicans that eventually will oppose him, because you're talking about the department that's in charge of enforcing labor laws in this country. And, you know, Donald Trump has kind of given a big middle finger to that entire department by nominating somebody who was found to have 50% of his restaurants in non-compliance with labor laws. This is the guy who has essentially been a labor law scofflaw for most of his career, and now you're going to put him in charge of enforcing the very laws that he flouted. In addition, as you mentioned, he's been a really enthusiastic supporter of getting rid of as many employees as possible and replacing them with automated robots. Now, whether or not he can do anything about that in the Department of Labor, I don't know, but the idea that you would have somebody who has such disregard for workers and workers' rights in charge of those very laws, I mean, it would be really curious to have every Republican on the committee support somebody like this.
Well, are you going to try to, I mean, do you have an open mind about him? Do you think he has answers to these questions, or are you going to try to stop him?
No, I don't have an open mind. I mean, everything I've learned about him suggests that he really is the exact opposite of the kind of person that you'd want at the Department of Labor. I think for me, all the questions have already been answered. This is somebody who opposes the minimum wage, who wants to end health care for 20 million workers, whose own restaurants have been consistently in violation of federal law, and sort of has a general contempt for the whole idea of people working. So I can't imagine anybody less qualified for this position. And I think a lot of Republicans are going to be asking tough questions at these hearings.
I also wanted to ask you about Russia and the announcement today by the president's Assistant National Security Director for Counterterrorism, Lisa Monaco, that he wants an investigation into Russia's role in hacking and in trying to influence the election. Let's play a little bit of Lisa Monaco at the Monitor Breakfast today.
The president has directed the intelligence community to conduct a full review of what happened during the 2016 election process. And to capture lessons learned from that, and to report to a range of stakeholders, to include the Congress. He expects to get a report prior to him leaving office, yes.
And release a public one?
We'll see what comes out of the report, but certainly there will be a report to a range of stakeholders, to include Congress.
And leading senators, including some Republicans, are already investigating or calling for investigation into Russia and Russia's role. What is your view on all this?
Well, my view is that we need to make sure that this is done in a bipartisan way here in Congress. I'm glad that the administration is going to conduct a review, but we need Republicans and Democrats in the Senate joining together to do our own review, to hold hearings, whether it be on the Foreign Relations Committee, where I sit, on the Intelligence Committee. You know, let's just think back to the Cold War. If we had found out in the middle of the Cold War that the Russians were trying to impact elections, or trying to steal voter files, or trying to spread fake news stories about candidates, both parties would come together to put an end to it and to perhaps enact sanctions. So we need this to be bipartisan as well, and I hope that Donald Trump sets that tone from the top. He can say that Congress should get to the bottom of this. He can continue the investigatory work that the Obama administration is doing, because you know what? Maybe the Russians were weighing in on Donald Trump's and the Republicans' behalf in this election, but believe me, they'll be weighing in against Republicans down the line. It's in both parties' benefit to get to the bottom of this.
And finally, and this is too bizarre and awful to even comprehend, but there is, as part of this whole fake news, conspiracy theories online, a woman was arrested allegedly for death threats against the father of little Noah Lenzer, the youngest victim of Sandy Hook. And his father has been threatened, allegedly, by this woman. She doesn't believe Sandy Hook and the massacre ever happened. She believes, and others online, that in fact it was a conspiracy to try to get gun control laws prosecuted. Where do we draw a line? How do we deal with all of these conspiracy theories? Hillary Clinton, in a return to Capitol Hill yesterday, talked about the dangers because of the shooting here. Thankfully, no one was hurt at the pizza restaurant.
Yeah, well, Noah's funeral was the first that I went to after Sandy Hook, and his father may have been targeted because he has made it his mission to confront and uncover these vicious conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook. Listen, it starts at the top, and I hope that the Trump administration takes another look at how it vets nominees and people in important positions to make sure that none of them have any connection to these conspiracy theories. The idea that General Flynn and his son, who used to be part of the transition team, had been trading in conspiracy theories about the Hillary Clinton campaign suggests that there's a tolerance for these kind of truther campaigns that really shouldn't be allowed in this administration. So we're going to call them as we see them. Eventually, somebody could get hurt. Eventually, this may move beyond threats or people showing up to restaurants with guns. And I really hope that the Trump administration and President-elect Trump himself has some clear statements about how no one in any position of power should be trading in or endorsing these kind of theories.
And it's a big issue for Facebook, for some of these other companies as well. They know they've got to deal with it. I misspoke. Of course, Noah's name was Noah Puzder. He was only 6 years old, and it was one of the great, part of that whole tragedy is that it's still going on for these families. Thank you very much, Senator. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Andrea.